you know if you have an issue in your brain or your nervous system? Or I'll take that one step further. How do you know that you need to put in some protective detail to help protect your brain and nervous system? So we're going to look at this in two different ways. First off, I'm going to give you top 10. I want you to grab a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to jot down a check mark or a number 1 and tell me how many you get by the end of this list of 10. And then we'll dive into more. Don't worry. So first things first, do you have a family history of Alzheimer's or dementia or any type of cognitive decline? Add an extra check mark if you yourself have been diagnosed with some of the early signs of this. Number 2, do you struggle with mood or do you struggle with anxiety or worries? Yeah, you could use some nutrition for the brain. Number 3, do you struggle with brain fog? Is it worse on certain days of the month? Is it worse at certain times of the day? Is it kind of a constant, like, oh God, how do I get to the answer of what I'm looking for? Like, is that your day-to-day life? Number 4, are you yourself or somebody in your care working with neurodivergence? What do I mean by neurodivergence? ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia. Those are going to be the most, I suppose, most common ones that we might find. But neurodivergence means you are seeing the world and working through the world differently than others. And the gifts you bring are amazing. But there's some nutrient deficiencies that are correlated with some of these diagnoses. I think it's actually, you are a marvel of evolution. So you're not broken, there's nothing wrong. But if we give deep nutrition, could it ease and help improve the anxiety that's associated with neurodivergence? And could it make things a little bit easier for you to get through your day? Yeah. Number 5. This is a surprise one. Do you struggle with constipation or diarrhea? Luca, what does that have to do with my brain and my nervous system? Well, I'll tell you. Do you know that when they were starting to develop medications and pharmaceuticals to help support constipation, what they found was that it actually helped alleviate depression. And when they went in to develop formulations and different kinds of pharmaceuticals to address anxiety, turns out it was helping reduce IBS type things where there's a lot of diarrhea. What? Yeah. Do you know that what's happening in your gut has an absolute resonance in this part of the body, in the brain and the nervous system? So if you struggle with constipation or diarrhea, persistent, like we're talking all the time, I'm worried about your mental health, first of all. And second of all, that connection is a part of what we will be honing in on and really working on in these next 2 months. Yes. Number 6, do you have blood sugar balancing issues? Do you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes? Do you know that the incidence of developing Alzheimer's and dementia rises with a type 2 diagnosis, type 2 diabetes diagnosis? Hypoglycemic metabolic syndrome, those are all potential drivers of some of the damage that can impact and drive that dementia and Alzheimer's, or contribute to it. Yep. Number 7, have you ever worked through a concussion, been involved in a motor vehicle accident? Yes. Or had head trauma? Yes. All of these compounds and different things that we will be talking about in these next 2 months on the brain and the nervous system would be of benefit to you till the end of February 2024. Okay, that's number 7. Number 8, do you struggle with persistent low fatigue or low energy, where it's kind of all the time? Your brain and your nervous system are having a hard time, potentially. Not 100% all the time, but certainly when I see people struggling with persistent low energy and really low fatigue, then I wonder how the nervous system is doing, because it will also feel the impact of that. You know, it starts with fatigue and then it starts to show up in the nervous system. So we'll be talking about how to support that. Number 9, do you have any type of main diagnosis that impacts your brain or your nerves? I mean, that's an obvious one, but perhaps it's not obvious. I want to make sure that everybody who needs access to this knows what's going to be at play here. So anybody who struggles with things like multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, ALS, if there's a family history of any of these, and any kind of nervous system disruption that's going on, where your nerves are struggling, where your brain is struggling, your cognitive function, your memory, everything that the brain has to work with. The brain actually resolves or sets up your mood, right? That's why we include the mood in the top 10. So if you have or are caring for someone who has a neurodegenerative condition, so some condition that impacts the brain and the nervous system, or the nervous system. All right, number 10, final one. Do you get nerve tingling? Do you get pain or any type of chronic pain? Now we are talking about the nervous system responding to something. And this is what we will really be diving into in this long month, 2 months, actually, January and February 2024, looking at the brain and the nervous system. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by looking at deep nutrition to best help these organs flourish and the function that all of these organs do. I think of these organs as they run through recipes. And do they have all the ingredients they need for each and every single recipe? If they're missing any ingredients, they struggle with those recipes, and now they can't do those things they're supposed to. The different parts of the nervous system. So we'll be talking about that deep nutrition to make sure you have all of the ingredients for all of your recipes. We'll be talking also about how to bring in that protective detail, what that entails, what that looks like in order to help support the brain and the nervous system and do that protective bit. And then we're going to also talk about how stress impacts all of this and how looking after the brain and the nervous system and nourishing it can be just another way of creating that biochemical safety in the body. And when we do that, now we reduce the amount of stress our body's under, and we reduce that inflammation load. So this is everything that we're going to be covering in January and February here in the Good Food Network. Is this something you struggle with? How many check marks did you get from those top 10?